Well, we're going on a little bit of a field trip today. We're going to go over to our local homebrew store, and you're going to get an opportunity to see what the inside of one looks like and meet some people that work there. So I'm not sure if it's Steve or Matt that's working tonight, but be well worth it. Hopefully we'll get some good information for you.
He's Chris.
And he's Scott, and we're two guys
brewing.
Tell them where you're at, Scott.
Here we are at our local homebrew supply store, Dunkirk Homebrew. It's where we come and get a lot of our supplies when we are trying to brew. Besides Geezer and lots of bottles, we got just about anything a home brewer would want.
Yeah, here's some dry malt extract, some DME. We got some liquid malt extract, some LME, and boatloads of kits.
Lots of kits. Lots of other brewing supplies.
Supplies, adjuncts.
Different adjunct ingredients. And
All sorts
caps.
of caps.
Oh, you name it, they got it, right?
Yep.
Lots of stuff all brewing all around.
Some
got,
books and literature.
chemicals.
It's actually
Out
a wine,
back, we got a
wine section here.
Yeah, got a wine section.
Yeah, let's start. We got the grains in the back here. So you can get, when you get into the...
Speaking of grains, I'm going to buy a little bit of grain today.
I'm going to go pick up a kit for brewing tonight.
Hi, I'm Steve Spears. I'm the owner of Dunkirk Homebrew. We are a local homebrew shop here in the Dunkirk, Fredonia area, located at 3375 East Main Road, Dunkirk, New York. We are a full-line supplier of beer and wine brewing equipment and supplies. Come on down. Most of my customers become my friends. Thank you.
We have talked over and over again about going to your local brew store, coming in about the knowledge base that you get here. Now Steve obviously is a prime example. He's our brew store guy. You're going to have somebody, in your local brew store, a Steve. Everyone's got their own Steve.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. So he's obviously a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. So how long have you been brewing, Steve?
I started brewing beer, I think it was August or September of 1995. So I'm going on 19 years this year.
And now...
And I started off as an extract brewer for about 5 batches of beer. And then I was brewing at that time with a partner, Mike. You guys might know Mike G. And Mike built our first Zapap mash tun, which is a bucket you drill 500 holes in the bottom of, and you put that inside of another bucket with a spigot on it. And that worked fine until we realized it wouldn't hold any more than 9 pounds of grain, because we tried to put 10 in at one time, and it limits caused it sort of float over. So we, at some point, I built my mash tun. I think it's nice having someone to brew with. Part of it's sharing the joy of homebrewing. That just Paisley probably love me for that one. But it's also having someone there to double check you. We brew here at the store quite frequently, and I get caught up with customers, so it's nice to have somebody here that knows the process and can keep an eye on the brew process and keep it moving along.
So how long have you had the store here? How long have you been running this?
I've owned Dunkirk Homebrew since May of 2005. So I've got 9 years this year. It'll be 9 years I've had the store, going on my 10th in May. I know I've grown the business about 5 times what it was when I first took it over.
Sweet. It's getting a lot more popular in general, too.
Yeah, I think the home brewing.
Scott and I were talking about that yesterday, actually.
And it's a double-edged sword for me, because I took this over to have a hobby, something to do when I retired. And I was 50 years old when I bought this place, or 49, and I was thinking ahead to retirement already, and it took off a lot faster than I expected it to, and it became bigger than what I was expecting it to. I mean, I couldn't. I'm amazed, but I'm not a businessman. I'm a home brewer, and trying to keep up with everything and running the store, and
The hobby's getting too much like work.
and I have to work another job to pay the bills. This is a hobby, but it's just still so much fun, and I've met so many I haven't met a beer brewer that I haven't liked yet. I haven't met a single beer brewer that I don't like. I can honestly say that.
Yeah.
And going to the club meetings, you guys are probably finding that out too.
Homebrew
Homebrew clubs. There's another great resource for.
Well, when when Harry and Sue and Pete and Julie were over with us brewing that night, they definitely plugged the homebrew store and the beer club. Happy people.
Yeah, they're the biggest pushers for me to move out of here and into a bigger place.
Yeah. Well, when I first moved back to the area and started brewing down here, everything was up front in Brennan's there.
Brennan's, yeah.
Because when I moved back from Buffalo, I was up in Buffalo. This was before there were really homebrew stores. I mean, I'd go to the co-op and buy cans of malt extract that were basically for making bread. Right. Right. But they had some hops and they had some yeast.
Even since I started brewing in 1995, the quality of ingredients, even in that almost 20-year span now, has improved so dramatically. It's incredible. I mean, they've come out with specialty malts, and the Maris Otter and your rye malts, your wheat malts are all they sorghum syrups. If you want to brew gluten-free beers now, that you can do that. I don't think if you would have really been on your own back then trying to find stuff, but now there's recipes. You can go online and find recipes for gluten-free beers. When I came down here, I first started going over to Brennan's, and the first time I went into a little section, the second time I went in there, they're a huge section, and they got I'd never seen specialty grains before, and I actually have some of my original recipes at home. The very first beer I made, I remember I got the recipe from at the time was my supervisor where I worked, and he'd invited us down to his house a Friday night and to drink some of his home brews, and we loved it. We loved it. And he went over and goes, here's my recipe for my Dusty Chautauqua Brown. It was the first ale he'd made when he moved from Vermont to Chautauqua County for the job he was doing at the time. And it was just a nice little brown ale. And he made beers, and that's what we got into. I think it helped us with the naming, because he had beers like I Ain't No Nitwit, and he had several others, and I picked up several of those recipes.
I got those mystery hops, and I'm trying to figure out what they might be like, but I don't know my hops well enough. I'm still.
If you got them from around here, the chances are there's a good possibility, from what research I've done on that with Tim Weigel over to the Cornell agency, good likelihood they're a cluster hop.
Right, that's what it was. I thought, because I know they've been around for like at least 50 years, 60 years in New York State.
Right.
And
that's what they deduced mine were after.
Which is a kind of middle of the road type of.
It's actually nice. It's got a flavor and aroma quality, bittering qualities, so it can be used along the lines. And they used to use it in a lot of lagers around here. I know I've used it in some English ales and things like that, and they've worked out fine. I did a German beer with it. It wasn't quite the same, but it worked nicely.
This week, we have another nice little easy beer kit for beginners.
Beginner beer kit. Actually, or people. I know people that have been doing it for years that still do these.
Yeah, still do it, but beginners can certainly do it. Experts do it too.
Easy to follow directions. This year we got this week we got a Scottish ale.
Yeah, it's a Scottish ale kit.
This is a little more advanced than anything we've done so far. We actually have some adjunct
some
grains.
little adjunct specialty grains. Actually gonna brew some grain. A bag to put them in.
That's our new piece of equipment this week.
Yes.
Looks like a sock.
To the grain bag. We got some
DME.
dry malt extract. Yeast, bottle caps, priming sugar. Got a lot of hops in our Scottish ale today. We got a half ounce of Williamette, and another half ounce of Northern Brewer. Can of malt extract, amber malt extract. Nice.
What kind of DME is that? Does it say?
It's called, yeah, it does say.
Oh, okay. Dry malt extract. Oh, sparkling amber. So we got an amber and an amber.
All right.
Very easy to remember. Okay, so that's our kit this week. Very simple. The biggest difference is those adjunct grains. We're going to actually put those in before the boil. We're going to try and leach some flavor out of those. They do not go in the main boil. Once you put those in that little sock, the little grain bag, put it in kind of like tea.
Yep, yeah, it's like making tea. There's steeping grains. You learn about brewing beer, there's a process called mashing, but we don't need to mash those grains. Mashing is about converting sugars or starches into sugars that the yeast can eat, but that's not what we're doing. We're just making tea, kind of, today.
Some flavor, maybe some mouthfeel. It'll definitely
Called steeping.
affect the how dark the beer is going to be. It's definitely not going to be an amber beer. It's going to be a little darker with some of those grains. So it should be good. And we got the water started.
I like to start steeping when our water is around, I don't know, 140 plus,
And I think
150 plus.
directions say 150 to 165 and steep for 20 minutes. So pretty not rocket science. So we threw in some specialty grains this week. And you can usually they add color and flavor and things like mouthfeel.
Almost mostly
Head
color,
retention.
flavor, mouthfeel, right. Make
Head
the beer a
retention
little
even.
thicker.
So how are the grains produced?
You grow barley, you take the seeds of barley plants. So you start with the seed. And then you start to sprout it.
How do you start to sprout?
You give it some moisture.
Give some moisture, the seed germinates.
And you don't even let it totally germinate.
It starts to germinate.
Right, it starts to germinate.
And that converts the starches to
that-
sugars that the plant would normally use
Right.
to grow. And if you didn't do anything, that's what would happen. It would grow into a barley plant.
But that's
But that doesn't make beer.
inside that seed, there is a potential. It's like potential energy.
Right. Excellent example.
The rootlets get long, but the acrospire is
You don't
the
want that.
part of the plant that is going to grow up and is going to grow up and out of the ground and become the barley stalk and make more barley. When that is about 75 to 100% of the length of the barley seed, so it hasn't even really sprouted yet. Now the rootlets will be out there. You got a seed of barley, and when you put it in the water, well, if you just put it in the water, it's going to drown. So what you do is you put it in the water and you take it out of water, and you put it into water again and you take it out of the water again. And then you put it in the water again and you take it out of the water again. And you try to do this at a kind of controlled temperature, around 75 or 80, what's comfortable for humans. When it's just about to bust out of the seed and you start to get like a sprout, then that's when you want to stop it and dry it. The malting process is over. It's malted at that point. All the rootlets and everything are all sticking out. And then you start drying it. So you dry it around 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple days maybe.
Right. That's what stops the germination. Of the
Then
flies.
yes, no
It's
moisture.
not really roasting it. You're just drying it out.
No, you're drying it. One of
All right, so
those
at that point, it's
things you wanna
considered
make.
green.
Yes, green malt. Green malt.
Then
Now, so alright, let's talk about what. Sorry, so you want that to be 2-row malt, like what you buy as a 2-row malt, which is the base of most brews that you make. You don't really have to do anything to it anymore. It's malted. All you have to do is dry it, and it's ready to go.
right.
That's
and generally,
that's,
and then and you do start at this point. You usually start to roast the malts, and the higher the temperature, the longer it roasts, the darker it gets. The more flavor it gets added to it, and that's why you have a difference between, like, say, a porter and a German and a German amber. Right. So if you get a pale malt, which you were talking about, that's the basis of, say, your pale ales and your bitters, and that's what most other malts are made out of. Now then, if you wanted to go a little further, then you could have like an amber malt, which basically you take your pale malt and you come at a temperature of more like 150, 160. Your amber malts, those are going to be used more for like a brown porter, something along those lines. It usually has a little bit of a bitter flavor, but it'll age out as the beer matures. The bitter flavor starts to age out. So it's going to make a bigger difference. The aging process of the beer is going to make a bigger difference in a darker beer than in a lighter beer. And the amber is going to have an SRM somewhere around 50, 70, something like that. It's not, it doesn't look black yet. it's a darker color.
Well,
and then like something that's like really dark, like a chocolate malt. Similar to, it's prepared similar to an amber, but it's roasted at a higher temperature, and you start getting those undertones like the vanilla and the caramel, and it doesn't taste like chocolate, but it does, but it looks like chocolate. And it's used more in porters and sweet stouts. And it does have like an SRM like 450, 500. Like a crystal malt's like a high nitrogen malt. It's wetted and roasted, but they do it in a rotating kiln.
Making crystal malt is you're kind of mashing it right inside of the husk.
The whole process is done all at one time. Right. And your crystals are available in a wide range of colors. I mean, if you're buying an amber, it's going to be in
10,
a pretty
20, 40, 60, 80, 120,
These are
500, 600.
the love about, and whereas if you're buying an amber malt, it's going to be 50 to 70. But if you buy a crystal, you can buy a crystal 20 or a crystal 80, and they're both crystal, but they've been roasted differently, and they add different characteristics to the beer, but they're done differently than your other malt, your general malts are. The SRM, we've thrown that term around a little bit.
What color is your beer?
That's pretty much it talks about color. There's actually
How do you measure
4 different
it?
scales that are used for measuring the color of your beer. Lovabond, which we mentioned, and that's generally used for grains. If you the way Lovabonds are, they actually have a glass plates, and this color is this Lovabond, and you hold that up, and you hold it up next to the grain, and it's pretty easy to determine if that's, you eyeball it, and then you get close. SRM is a standard reference method, or SRM for short, and sometimes it's actually called ASBC, which stands for the organization that developed the standard reference method. The European Brewing Convention, or EBC, that's used more in Europe. SRMs are used in the States. EBC is used in Europe. And you can convert from one to the other fairly easily. With the SRM and the EBC, they actually shine a light of a certain wavelength through the beer, and what comes out the other side determines its level. And that gives you a great indication of how dark the beer is. If it's a light beer or dark beer, how much light is passing through it. But it's really not a good indication of color. If you got a nice red beer, the SRM is not going to tell you if it's red or if it's. But there is a method or a scale that does take into account more than just how much particulates in the beer, but also takes into account the actual color, and that's the augmented SRM. It's a long pain in the butt formula, requires special equipment to determine the augmented SRM, so it's really not something any home brewer is ever going to do. With SRM, you can eyeball it. You can hold your beer up and say that's about a 20 or that's about an 80. So anyways, with your SRMs and your Lovabonds, they give you a pretty good idea how dark your beer is going to be. If you're working on recipe creation, it's good to have a rough idea where they're at.
Where are we at here, Chris?
We are at about 160 degrees, so that's good enough to
For those grains.
put our grains and everything, move everything over there.
Okay. If I hold the bag, you want to thump them in? Or?
Sure.
That's quite a pair of scissors you
Yeah.
have there, Chris.
Alright, especially grain one. See a little bit of schmutz coming out. Ain't gonna hurt anything. I'm spilling some Star San all over that floor before one. I'll just clean it up all at one time. There we go. Grain number 2. Alright, and then you want me to like kind of hold it from the bottom while you tie it?
Sure.
A
Four-
nice
four
long
pair of
one.
hands. Yeah,
I
four
like
pair of
I
hands.
like this bag. This is a good one.
4 pair of hands. I mean, you could always just throw a twist tie on there or something along those
That's
lines.
gonna do it.
Alright, and
There we go.
we're at 7:01, so we'll call it. You just drop it in.
Just drop it in. Hey, teabag it a little bit.
Yeah, can't hurt to stir it up. The more the water's moving, the more contact you've got between your grains and the water.
If I had one, I'd put a clothespin or a binder clip. I use binder clips.
Oh, you know, I bet you I have one of those floating around. Hold that for a second.
Works
I'll
really
do that
well.
for you.
Keeps.
And here's a little clippy thing that I never use, so it'll work, I'm hoping.
That'd be fine.
There we go.
Neil, what were we at before?
Temperature wise? 160. Ooh, shoot! Scott! Coming on there. Earlier, definitely, I should have turned it off. I intended to turn it off and I completely forgot. Somebody of high intelligence forgot to turn off the gas, and we got up to about 180 degrees on our steeping grains. Really should have stayed, according to the directions, at 165. Beer's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Beer's beer. You never know, it might even taste better this way.
Nothing to fear. It might not come out exactly the way it was supposed to. It's still going to be good
Hey,
beer.
you want your Irish ale to taste like everybody, or your Scottish ale to taste like everybody else's Scottish ale? No uniqueness, no individuality that way. You might as well be drinking a commercial beer. Alright, we're at 20 minutes. We're going to pull our grain out of here. And directions say to kind of just like hold it for a minute and let it drain. It actually said specifically not to wring it out, didn't it? Which doesn't make any sense to me.
I always...
Wring it out.
I'm not-
Don't burn your
yeah.
hands. Don't burn your hands.
Look, I'm
It is a-
holding it against the side of the pot.
Yeah. This is 180 degrees. Plenty enough to burn your hand, so don't burn your hand.
Alright, we're going to use this to make bread or
Something, yeah. Spent
something
grains.
good, yummy, something good, yummy with
Go online. There's tons of
Don't have
recipes
to
for
throw
spent
that
grains. Well, once you get into mashing, you're going to throw a lot of them out because you just can't make
Yes.
that much. but for this, that there, right there, you could probably make a couple loaves of bread out of. It's good stuff. And we're ready to fire this up, get this back up to boiling,
boiling.
and start the rest of the process just like we did the last 3 weeks.
Right now, we're just at pound of grain and 5.5 gallons of water. That looks like beer to me. I mean,
Yeah,
that looks like
some
water.
color. Let's show the color on
It's
that.
got
So this here is what it looks like. You can see it's nice and dark, and looks like beer. Smells a little like burnt grain, but once we throw the amber malt and stuff in there, it'll probably lighten up a little bit, but not a lot. I bet you the finished beer is going to be not too far off that color.
Well, it's hard to tell.
Bring your gentle boil. Add all of the included LME and DME to the boiling wort. Alright, so there you go. Yes, it all goes in.
All right, you want that in there?
Yeah, but I don't want this label in there.
Okay.
We tend to throw these labels in and then you end up with pieces of label. You know what? I'll tell you what, let me hold this so I don't touch your hand.
Have you got it? I'll let go. Do you want this in there?
Yeah, throw that in there. Alright, there we go. So, it's less paper that we need to fish out now.
Yep.
We can just, I'll dump this in, and then you can do the DME.
I don't want to do the DME.
All right, well, you stay with this, and I'll do the DME.
Alright, so we got our dry malt extract, and we said in our previous videos, and I'm going to say again, Chris, let me know when you're ready. You want to turn the fire out when I add this?
Yeah, I do actually want to turn the fire
Right.
off because
And I'm going to try to add this as quickly as I can, which is going to tend to maybe create a boil up situation. That's why we turn the fire out. But as soon as a little bit of steam or moisture hits this stuff, it kind of turns into like old cotton candy. It's like a little rock candy, sort of sticky, gooey. Right now it's just a beautiful powdery and good.
it looks wonderful. Looks wonderful. All right. And no paper today. Hey.
So I'm gonna dump it in, and Chris is gonna stir right away.
Yep.
So we got our fire out, so we're not really worried about scalding it or
I'm
burning
in.
it. Or, here we go. On your mark, get set, go.
Want to throw that in and stir it a little bit?
I don't do that, but you can if it's your beer. It's your kid.
I would say, I mean, there's a lot in there.
What I'm talking about, like the steam hits it, and you get this, and it's just a hard, sticky, like old cotton candy type of sugary goodness that those yeast are gonna love. So we're gonna try to get that too. Okay, I'm gonna do that by. Not bad. Alright, so I was able to get most of it out of there by dipping and dunking. I don't want to burn Chris. Chris is trying not to burn me. We're both,
Stuff's hot.
we've been doing pretty good. Done pretty well. But yeah, got it all out of there. Looks good to me, Chris.
I think it's good. All right, so hasn't boiled over yet. Turn the heat back on. Keep an eye on it as it comes up to boiling temperature. It still could boil over.
I bet the Northern Brewers are going to go in first. Just a hunch.
Sure. Why is that your hunch? Just
Well, because they have an alpha at 10.9 and the Williamette are like 4.1.
so there you go. So you think that it sounds like they are more meant for bittering.
High alpha, probably better bittering hop than a low alpha. Well, according to their schedule here, we're going to add our ½ ounce of Northern Brewer hops, boil for 40 minutes, then add our ½ ounce of Williamette hops and boil for another final 5 minutes. So it's only a 45-minute boil.
We'll call it 8:15 just to make our lives easier. So they're of course this is a 45-minute boil. So like I said, we're not doing a 60-minute boil today. We're doing a 45-minute. And the directions again are backwards. So we gotta know that we added our hops at 45, and our next hops go in at 5.
Yeah, so when somebody says 45 minutes, that's from the time, 45 minutes from the time that you stop boiling. The flame out, we call that. So we're about 15 minutes from the end of our boil.
I just threw some Irish moss in there.
We're going to get our Irish moss in. And we're going to put our wort chiller in now to sanitize it in that boiling water for, the 15 minutes in there, and whatever
We're doing it right this week.
whatever is alive on it now is going to die, and it'll all be good. All right? So, there might be some water in here, though, from the last time we used it. And when you put it in there, that water's going to expand, it's going to bubble, and
It's going to come out into this bucket, which we have here for just such an occasion.
it's going to come out somewhere, so pay attention. Make sure that you, one time I burned my ankle really badly by not paying attention.
You didn't burn your
exactly
ankle.
what
I burned your ankle. Don't lie to the people. It was all my fault. But in my defense, I never used a work chiller before and didn't know what the hell I was doing.
I got a burn on my ankle that, cause just lack of communication. It wasn't Chris's fault either.
It was the beer.
Sometimes shit happens.
And it was lack of communication.
It wasn't a good thing. That was a pretty severe burn.
It was.
And
It was very severe then. And so
I don't want that to happen to you. So try to be sensible. An experience factor to brewing.
yeah, so, I mean,
And,
if you're working with somebody that's never worked with any piece of equipment, I mean, there's fire, there's all sorts of hot, sticky, gooey stuff that can burn. So if you're working with somebody that's never used a piece of equipment before or never brewed before, all the stuff you take for granted, they don't know.
right.
so,
And a lot of the equipment, like a work chiller, people have.
And tell them, ask questions, because if you're doing something, you may not realize that you're doing something that they don't understand. So, they should encourage them to ask you questions as you go along so that they can remind you of the things that they don't know, so that you can tell them and explain it to them safely and instruct them.
And ask us questions too.
Yeah, sure. For go online.
We're obviously going to be seeing this online.
So yeah, we've got a Facebook group, Two Guys Brewing, and join the group. We also got a web
We have
page.
a website.
Website, twoguysbrewing.net. So come on over there. And we should have all our show notes in that area. So, if we talk about something, we're going to try and put some links to prove what we're saying is either right or with further explanation. If we talk about some calculators, like a hops calculator or something, we're going to try and put a link on there so that you can use the actual hops calculator we're referring to. I don't know if there's a hops calculator, but
Calculator.
there probably is,
Geez, Chris, every time I drink your beer, it makes me fall down. Why is that?
You're an alcoholic. William Met, this is our aroma hops. We're going to pop this puppy in there. We got about 5 minutes left in our...
5 minute, 4 minute, 3 minute, 2 minute, 0 minute, don't matter.
Yeah, it's not a...
Nothing with...
For the recipe, it calls for it at 5 minutes. But you could, you can put the hops in, basically the later in the boil, or even after the boil, the less bittering and the more aroma. The longer it boils, the more the aroma boils off, and the more that the alpha acids are converted over and turned into bittering.
Grab one.
No, you actually want to hold those up so nothing drips out of my foot, though.
I'm like you, I need to get the burger.
I think we're good there. That's pretty stable. All right. We are good. What we're doing here tonight is trying to jury-rig our wort chiller to operate off of the sink as opposed to going outside and carrying 5 gallons of wort outside.
It'll work.
Is that working? Woohoo! Boiling hot water going down the drain.
There it is. Coming out a little bit.
So this week, as I've been threatening to do for a while, I've actually remembered to rehydrate some yeast. Took some water, tap water, boiled it up, cooled it down, kept the lid on it. So basically, sanitized the water, sterilized the water, cooled it down to pitching temperature. We got it down to low 90s, 94. I think when we started talking, by the time we actually got the yeast in there, it was closer to about 90. This little Pyrex measuring cup. Put some Star San in there, make sure this was sanitized before I did any of that. Because again, you got to remember, those yeast are in this measuring cup and then they're going in your beer. So if there's anything in the measuring cup, when you put the yeast in there, they're going to pick it up and then it's going to transfer it to your beer and you could get an infection. So you want to make sure that anything that's touching your wort from the time you turn the flame off till you open that bottle up and start drinking it is sterilized or sanitized at the very least. So just put some straight water in there, our little package of Windsor yeast, sprinkled it on top, and just let it sit. It's absorbing the water right now, basically taking the water into the cells. The dry yeast especially, when they are starting to wake up, when they're first absorbing the water into their cells, they can't regulate what they're taking in. So if you pitch dry yeast right into your wort, like we've done the last few times, you're going to have a certain amount of those yeast cells are just going to die. They're going to be sucking in the sugars and the water too fast, especially the sugars, and it kills them. It'll cause them to explode, give them internal injuries, terrible stuff like a train wreck.
Sort of. I mean, we know it works.
It works. I mean, it's
works.
a certain percentage. I mean, you're
Exactly.
going to lose.
There is a better way to do it.
You can lose. Some estimates are 50% of the yeast cells will die.
Yeah.
So you got 50% that are still alive and happy and go on with their lives. And there's a big debate whether that's you should hydrate or you should not hydrate, because when you hydrate, you're definitely taking an extra step, an extra place where you can get contamination in there. So, you know, you can go online, look at the show notes. You're going to see some links to some big, long discussions on this where people are, you know, flaming each other all over the place because they don't hydrate, or they do hydrate, and they're idiots because they don't agree with each other.
Hydrate, but be a good janitor.
Yeah, or don't hydrate. It's really up to you. We just dumped out our ale pail from episode 1 and discovered that this was in the bottoms. We forgot to take this out. And it's been in our fermenter for 3 weeks. Guess what? The beer still tastes good. What if that's why it tastes so sweet? So our hydrated yeast is bubbling away. Actually, here we'll show it to you again. That's it. You see, it's got a nice little foam head on it, like some hot chocolate or something there. All right, and there's our ale pail that everything's going into. So I'm just going to dump this into the ale pail. Stir it up so a lot of it's sunk to the bottom. And this here is my the wort.
It's a beer.
It'll be beer eventually.
It will be beer.
The wort. Alright, so we're got most of the yeasties in there. And we'll just kind of dump this in there nice and slow. Try and pull back the shrub as much as we can. If you pull the bottom up on pull the bottom of this bag. There we go. Slow.
I didn't want to pour fast,
No, we don't.
especially at the beginning.
Alright, I got it from here, thanks.
You think there's anything we're leaving there, Chris?
Yep, watch out. I got it, Scott. Stand up now. Not a lot, but there's definitely some stuff to leave in there.
Extract kits and that. There's a little bit of protein. There is a little bit.
You can see some crap coming out now.
You don't think he sees his hops, but
Well, it's crap.
yeah.
There we go. We're definitely get some junk in there. Alright.
So, would you throw that out though?
I don't know how many gallons we got in there.
Right? 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 5.
Probably a little above
And,
5.
and we're at the...
I poured all in there.
No.
How much is left in there?
Maybe a cup and half of it's junk.
Alright.
So, there's no...
Yeah, alright.
There's no real reason to dump it all in. I mean, there's definitely some shrub in there.
Man, that smells good.
Scott's going to go take that and have some private time.
Me.
All right. Well, that's it for tonight. This one, well, standard operating procedures. We're going to let it sit for 3 weeks, bottle it up, and start tasting it, testing it. Cheers.
Here at Dunkirk Homebrew, we offer a wide selection. Our malt extracts are Breese liquid, Munton's liquids, Breese dry malt extracts, Brewer's Best beer ingredient kits, and we carry a full line of grains from Avantgarde, German malt, Dingemans, Muntons, Breese, a full line of specialty grains, special beef, flake rice, white wheat, you name it, we've got it. And we will crush it for you, no charge.
So, episode 4.
This was a much better than. Actually, I gave it a better score than Scott did. So why don't you go first, Scott?
All right. For aroma, you know, it smells like beer. It's got a faint aroma. Certainly not real strong, but it's okay. I gave it an 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 12 for you know, there's not much to comment. It's not. It smells like beer to me. Not overly malty or under malty. Everything seems to be balanced. For appearance, I thought it looks good. It's it's pretty clear. The head is okay. The retention wasn't great. Off-white, I just put that as a color. That's not a pro or a con. It's just kind of what it is.
Commentation.
Right. And I give it a 2 out of 3 for the appearance. Mostly because of its lack of head retention and lacing and so on. Flavor, I think the flavor will improve. I think it's still a little green or young. Kind of an earthy flavor going on, and there's some flavor in there that I couldn't really identify. Sort of reminded me of chewing tobacco, which isn't really what I want in beer. So I mean, that's not a real positive thing. I give it a 15 out of 20 anyway. The rest of it, I mean, otherwise it tastes pretty good. But there's some. Listen, I think it has still a little green. I think that'll mellow and it'll get better.
That may actually be the hops.
It might, as I said, the earthy coming from it. But like I said, I think as it ages, I think it's still a little young. I think it'll get better. That's why I didn't dig it as. If it still tastes like that in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm probably gonna. Yeah, it's probably gonna get a lower score. The mouthfeel is good. I gave it 4 out of 5, and my overall impression was a 6 out of 10, for a total score of 35 out of 50.
Okay. And now for aroma, it does have a slight sharpness to it, but it's not unappropriate. It is appropriate for the style, I guess would be the way to say it. Gave it a 12 out of 12. I thought the aroma was just fine. Appearance, the color is good. The head retention, I thought it was kind of medium, middle of the road head retention, and it was slightly cloudy. It wasn't, it wasn't the super cloudy, so I gave it a 2 out of 3, kind of dinged it a little bit for both of those. Flavor, it's malty with an earthy aftertaste. I think it's well balanced, but it finished kind of on the weak side, I thought. I gave it a 16 out of 20, and I hummed and hawed about that. I thought 15 was a little bit low, but I was thinking about it. So, mouthfeel, it definitely could have more body. It's not without body. It's just a little bit on the weak side. Everything else was good. Carbonation, warm, creaminess, palate sensation, all that's fine. No noticeable astringency. So I'd say it's a 4 out of 5 there. And the overall impression, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I figured, as Scott said, it should improve with age. It's a little bit on the young side. So all said and done, I gave it a 41 out of 50. So we'll see. It should improve, but I think for the style of beer, it's pretty darn close to where it should be.
Time in between, I guess.
Episode 4. And this one, I don't remember what it is. This one's unlabeled.
Okay, the mystery beer.
Mystery beer.
Identify the category.
This one, I think, might have been a kit. What do we make it? What do we do a kit? Was it like an Irish red, maybe? I think it was. So this might be an Irish red.
Let me add.
They're all cleared up pretty good.
I'll go first and you all can like laugh at me. I'm gonna give it a 49. The only thing I dinged it for is appearance. I think that it could be clear. Other than that, I mean, it's got good aroma, the flavor is appropriate for the style, mouthfeel is there, you know, there's no noticeable astringency that's not supposed to be there. Overall, for the style, I'd say it's a 10 out of 10. It's just, I'm not seeing a lot wrong with this beer.
Want me to go next?
You're gonna hammer
Yeah, I give it a 23 out of 50. It's extremely astringent. You guys need to flush your taste buds out with some pretzel. 10 out of 12, kind of for aroma, kind of has a hops flavor to it. I can smell it. Appearance was good, I thought. It looks clear to me. My eyes are a little better than Chris's, so. Flavor, 5 out of 20. I like Irish Red, and this is horrible. Very astringent, metallic aftertaste that I'm getting. A 2 out of 5 with the mouthfeel. It's very astringent aftertaste. Overall impression, a 3 out of 10.
Okay. For aroma, I give it a 9 out of 10. And
12.
A 9 out of
9
12.
12, yeah. It doesn't, I'm not sick or anything. I quit smoking. I think my nose is working pretty good. It just
Yeah,
it
the aroma.
smells a little
I
bit
smell
like
a little bit of hops.
It smells a little bit like beer.
I think it's got more smell than the other two.
Yeah, it
did.
does.
Right. So it's
Well, I think I gave better scores than the other for me.
I definitely did.
I think I gave it about the same, about 9 out of 12. Appearance, it's pretty dark, but I gave it a 3 out of 3. I mean, it had plenty of head when it started, and a little lacing. So. I mean, guess head retention was all right. It was hard.
I still have that. My beer's all gone. I still have that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like sticking to the sides.
I mean, you only start out with a couple fingers of beer anyway. But yeah, we still got a couple minutes in. There's still a little head left.
Oh man, I can taste.
Flavor, I gave it a
That one.
16 out of
Yeah.
20. Mouthfeel, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's and I don't know if it's the same flavor as the other one, not as strong, but I gave it.
It's a
I
different
still gave it a
flavor.
9 out of 10. I said, but my comment is, it's got a strange flavor in there.
It's
It's,
a
is
metallic.
that the astringency or?
Yeah, it's not the
metallic or
same.
something, or- Anyway, so I don't know what's that add up to be. 9 and 3 is 12, and 16 is 28. 4 is 32, and 9 is 41 out of 50.
So we are all over the board on that one.
Yeah.
Different taste buds.
Yeah. We probably should rinse our glasses out after that one.
Yeah.
Mhm.